Get more on this now with Yipeng Ge, who joins us from Ottawa in Canada. He's a resident physician at the University of Ottawa's Faculty of Medicine and was suspended over pro-Palestinian social media posts last November. Really good to have you back with us, Doctor. Let's start with the humanitarian situation in Gaza. We now have this disturbing trend where we're seeing in recent days Palestinians who are simply looking to get small amounts of food aid from these designated distribution centres, essentially being targeted and gunned down by Israeli forces. What's your reaction to what we're seeing right now?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I do want to clarify that I'm no longer a resident physician with the University of Ottawa. I am a practicing family doctor, and I have been even throughout the suspension with the university. And I resigned from the university because of their actions rooted in anti-Palestinian racism. I mean, reacting to what is happening on the ground in Gaza, we understand that this quote-unquote humanitarian aid delivery system, which is really a continuation of the genocide enablement apparatus by the Americans, by the Israelis, because the way in which humanitarian aid is being delivered is completely undignified and not in keeping with how United Nations and other humanitarian organizations have existing mechanisms set up to deliver aid. And we know that there are thousands of trucks that are still waiting at the borders to be let in. No meaningful aid has really still reached the people of Gaza, who are being exterminated in all these different ways that genocide is happening, through starvation and famine, but also the continuous ongoing bombardments through land, through sea, through air. And it's just absolutely devastating and horrifying to hear the accounts from doctors, from colleagues on the ground who try to do their best to care for their patients, but they are coming in with mass casualty events, children and patients who are shot in the chest and in the head by Israeli and American gunshot fire when they go to try to get food aid, because people are so desperate, so starving, and this is the only aid, but it's not even meaningful aid being received by the population. And this kind of weaponization of what humanitarianism is completely appalling for, I think, anyone who works in this sector.
Yes, and indeed, Israel has been accused from the very beginning of this conflict of weaponizing aid and weaponizing food in the enclave. What do you see as the solution to this? It would seem that a ceasefire now more than ever is required.
I think a ceasefire is the bare minimum. What we've seen is a complete decimation of not only the healthcare sector in Gaza, but all these other conditions that are necessary to sustain life. And I think this is why so many international human rights, humanitarian organizations are calling what is happening in Gaza genocide, because the conditions necessary to sustain life, and also a generation of children, the future of Gaza, the Palestinians and the future of Gaza, they are being systematically wiped out through famine, through starvation, through targeted attacks on healthcare and so many other sectors. So the conditions for life are all being systematically attacked and destroyed, even when Palestinian healthcare workers continue to rebuild, continue to provide care under these impossible circumstances, where the most basic of supplies, like sterile gauze, is not available at the Nasser medical complex, for example, or over 90% of surgical supplies required for orthopedic surgeries are not available. We heard these testimonies from doctors firsthand over these past few days, from doctors working in Khan Yunis. I heard yesterday from my colleague Maureen Kaki, who's the head of mission for the organization called GLIA, where she's been there for the past year, supporting the humanitarian efforts, the medical efforts through the GLIA, like primary care clinics and the operations in the hospitals. This is the worst that it's ever been since she entered last year, 1 year ago. And to see this continuously worsen, and to also see governments all around the world, the most complicit ones, continue to defend Israel, continue to provide Israel with diplomatic protection. For example, Canada, where I'm speaking from, our government has done nothing meaningful to really address and end this genocide, where weapons technologies are still being built in Canada, for example, even in Ottawa, where I'm calling in from. Companies like gas stops that are providing the engine sensors for the F-35 fighter jets made by Lockheed Martin in the United States. These components are still being shipped to the US, and then those F-35s are flying over Gaza to drop the 2,000-pound bombs that are killing Palestinian children, babies, women, families. So the bare minimum is not a ceasefire. It is actually a full two-way arms embargo with Israel, is to recognize the state of Palestine so that Palestine and Palestinians can live free with self-determination and sovereignty for their own health systems, because people in Palestine know what they need for themselves. And the rest of the world, we have to listen to that, and we have to break the siege of this ongoing blockade that has pre-existed October 2023, long before, as 18-year blockade that has limited the amount of calories that the entire population of Gaza could intake, effectively starving the entire population long before October 2023. I remember being in Gaza last year and seeing those impacts of stunting from that long existing blockade of aid and food. And then I was already caring for children that were on the brink of starvation and death from severe malnutrition. And people then were already eating animal feed, or bread made of animal feed, eating grass, and we are over a year from that moment. So I don't know what else to say in these moments that we statements are not enough. We need clear action, like sanctions, like cancellation of the Canada-Israel Free Trade Agreement, a full two-way arms embargo. These are the bare minimum pieces so that we can actually look towards how do we rebuild Gaza, led by Palestinians, so that people in Palestine can live free and with dignity from Israeli occupation, apartheid, and genocide.
Okay, Dr. Yipeng Ge, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks as always for joining us on the program.